In this video, I want to give a quick introduction to the parts of academic and theological books. Why? Because if you understand the parts of a book, you will be able to find out what a book is about quickly and decide if it's a book that you should spend more time reading. So, on the screen, I'm looking at page 17 in the textbook, and we have a list of the most common parts of academic and theological books. Not every book will have all of these parts, but almost all academic books will have most of these parts. So if we start at the top of the list, first, the front cover of a book. The cover of the book should have three things usually: the title, العنوان, the subtitle, العنوان الفرعي, and the author or the editor of the book. والكاتب أو المحقق أو المحرر. Then, if you go inside the book, and I'm going to show a couple of examples of this in just a minute. If you go inside the book a few pages, you'll find one page that has the publication data and copyright information. This page is where you find out what year the book was published and the name of the publishing company, أو دار النشر أو المطبعة. You need that information when you cite the book in your research papers, when you write your bibliography. Then, moving forward in the book, you'll find the table of contents, or al-muhtawiyat. In the table of contents, you find all of the chapters and the pages that the chapters start on. So if you read the table of contents, you can usually get an idea of what each chapter's topic is. Often at the beginning of a book, before the first chapter, you'll find a foreword, or a preface, or an introduction. These are all different kinds of muqaddimat. Some books have more than one of these. You might find a book with a preface and an introduction. And in fact, the example that I'll show you soon has both a preface and introduction. These three different types or different parts of a book, they can both introduce the topic of the book, what the book will be about. They may also be written by a different author, maybe recommending the book to the reader. And they may be the author's way of taking time to introduce not the book itself and what the book's about, but introduce why the author decided to write the book. In any case, foreword, preface, introduction, you may find them in your books. They may be useful for figuring out quickly what the book is going to be about. The next item on this list, footnotes or endnotes. Any book or source that the author cites or that he or she uses to take information for what he or she writes in the book needs to be listed either in the footnotes or the endnotes. The footnotes come at the bottom of every page in the order that they appear in the text, so footnote number 1, number 2, number 3, etc. The endnotes will come either all at the end of the book or possibly at the end of each chapter, but not at the bottom of every page. So that's footnotes at the bottom of the pages, endnotes at the end of the book or the end of the chapters. The next item in the list, the next part of the book, is the bibliography or the references. Every source that is cited in a footnote or an endnote will be listed again in the bibliography or the references at the end of the book. Here, all of the sources will be listed not in the order they appear in the book, but in alphabetical order by the author's last name. So all of the authors whose last names begin with A come first, then the names that start with B, C, D, etc. The next part, the index. Almost every book will have an index at the back. The index is usually the fihris, and it's usually a list not of sources, but it's a list of people, a list of places, a list of topics or subjects that appear in the book. So, if there's a very specific person or topic or idea that you're researching, you can go to the index of a book and look for that person or idea or subject, and that will tell you exactly which pages in the book mention that person or idea or subject. So you can find exactly the information you're looking for very quickly instead of reading a whole chapter or looking for a long time in the book. This next part, appendix. Many books don't have appendices, but if a book does have an appendix, it usually means that the appendix is giving some kind of extra information that's maybe very technical or very specialized that many readers don't need to see, but that some readers may be interested in so they can look in the appendix. One of the books I'll show in just a minute has an appendix, and you can see one of the kinds of things that can go in it. Often we won't be looking in the appendices, but you can if you're interested. And the last part, the back cover of a book. Often on the back cover you will find information about the author. You will also find sometimes brief reviews of the book from other scholars or other authors saying that this is an excellent book, it's a wonderful book, what kind of people might be interested in reading it, and why. So, I've just gone through this list of parts. Now let's look at some examples. The first book on the screen right now, this is the front cover of the book. Its title, up at the top, The Church in the Shadow of the Mosque, and then underneath we have the subtitle, Christians and Muslims in the World of Islam. And then underneath we have a name. This is the name of the author of the book. This is the information that's almost always on the cover of a book: the title, subtitle, and the author or editor of the book, if the book has many different contributors. If we go inside the book now, we'll find a title page, we'll find a list of other books that are in the same series. Again, a title page, title, Church in the Shadow of the Mosque, subtitle, author. Down at the bottom, we have just a note of the publishing company. This book was published by Princeton University Press, Matbaa, word for a publishing company, Princeton University Press, and then two cities where the press is located: Princeton in the United States and Oxford in the UK. Then this next page here on the right is a very important page. This is where we find the publication data and copyright information. In this page, they made it very easy for us. At the very top, the first line, copyright, and then the little symbol, the C in a circle, 2008 by Princeton University Press. So, whenever you go to write a bibliography for your papers, if you're using this book, you would know to write the date 2008 for this book. That's when it's copyrighted. And you can see the place, published by Princeton University Press, 41 William Street, Princeton, New Jersey, in the United States. The rest of this publication information doesn't really concern us. What we need to know are the publishing company or the press, the place, Princeton, New Jersey, and the year, 2008. Moving farther in, we have here a dedication, for my mother, blank page, and then the contents, or the table of contents, in Muhtawiyat. Here we find everything that is going to come in the book. You can see at the beginning, first section will be a list of illustrations, whether they're pictures, or graphs, or charts. List of illustrations, we can see if we click on it, there are figure 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different images that Sidney Griffith has put in this book. We'll go back to the table of contents. Then we have a preface and an introduction. Now, some books have prefaces, some books have introductions, and some books, like this book, have both a preface and an introduction. Here, this preface, if we click, we can see it. This book has been in the making for many years. It all began when, more than 25 years ago, I was a fellow at Dumbarton Oaks. So, in this preface, it's just a short preface, just 3 pages, and he's telling the story of how he came to write this book. If we go back then, the introduction is much longer. Well, 5 pages. And here, it's an introduction to the book itself, what the book is going to be talking about. So, it's a good idea, when you're just familiarizing yourself with the book, look at the introduction to get an idea what the book is going to cover. Or the introduction, المقدمة. Then we have the contents of the book chapter by chapter. Chapter 1, Chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and Chapter 7. We read the chapter titles, we can get an idea of what each chapter is going to cover, which chapters may be important for us to read. Then at the end, we have bibliography, al-muraja, all of the sources, all of the books and articles and documents and makhtutat that Sidney Griffith used to write this book. So if we click here, we can see it. Always, bibliographies in these books will be in alphabetical order. So we start with authors whose last names are with A, and work down. Over here we start authors with last names with B, A, B, C, D, E, to the end. All of his sources are here in the bibliography. The bibliography is also a great place to look if you want to find more sources about a particular topic in a book. And the last section of this book is the index, the fahris. The index is also alphabetical, but it's not a list of sources, or muraja. The index is a list of people and topics that the book discusses. So, for example, if I want to know something about Yahya ibn al-Adi and what Sidney Griffith says about Yahya in this book, I can go and I can see on page 3, page 62, 64, 66, 71, 73, all of these pages discuss Yahya ibn al-Adi. So, if he's my interest, I can go to all of these pages right away instead of reading the full book looking for where Sidney Griffith will talk about Yahya ibn al-Adi. The same here, these are all of the topics and people that the book talks about that start with the letter C. If I'm interested, for example, in the Council of Nicaea, Majma' Niqiyya, from the year 787, then I can look on page 129 and find what Sidney Griffith has to say about that. All of these topics from A to Z are here in the index. If we use this book as another example, we can again start with the front cover, and we find the same pieces: title, Medieval Arabic Historiography; subtitle, authors as actors; and the author's name, Conrad Hirschler. We go inside. On the first page we have a summary of the book and some information about the author, Conrad Hirschler. Here again, more other book titles of books in the same series. Going farther, title page again, same information as the cover, title, subtitle, author. Again, at the bottom of this title page we have the publishing company, Routledge, and London and New York, 2 cities where Routledge has offices. I hope you can see on the screen here, this is the publication information page. Here again, the date is up at the top. First published 2006 by Routledge in Oxford. Also published in the USA and Canada by Routledge in New York City, New York, New York. Here again, here's the copyright date, the copyright symbol, the C in the circle, copyright 2006, Conrad Hirschler. This you will need when you write your references for your papers in your courses. Moving on, we have al-muhtawiyat, the contents of the book. Again, this book begins with a list of its illustrations, the photographs it will include. You can go there to find out which pages and what those pictures are. The acknowledgments, where Conrad Hirschler, the author, thanks the people that helped him in the writing of this book, a few notes on romanization and terminology, and then the chapters of the book. Chapter 1 is his introduction to the book, then Chapter 2, Chapter 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Chapter 8 is his conclusion. I said in the earlier video, if you want to get an idea of what the book is going to be about, what the argument is, go to the introduction. You should also go to the conclusion, where the author should be summarizing the argument that he or she has made in the book and the main points that he or she has tried to make. Then something new in this book that Sidney Griffith's book did not have, there's an appendix. An appendix is usually for special information or data or charts that don't fit in the book itself, but that the author feels it's important to include so that people can see that if they want to. So let's go to page 124 and see this appendix. So page 124, appendix, see just after the conclusion, the appendix, and here exactly we have a figure or some kind of a diagram showing some very specific relationships between people. Here we can see the label underneath. Figure 1 is the network for Ibn Wasl. So someone called Ibn Wasl, who Conrad Hirschler discusses in the book. This is very detailed information that we might want to consult if we read the book. Next page. These are notes on the appendix explaining the picture. And there's a second diagram here. And you can see here figure 2. This is the label for this image. Ibn Wasl in Egypt, 543 to early 660s. So this information also is very detailed and technical. It can help us if we need it. After the appendix, we have the notes. And as you can see, the notes go chapter by chapter. Here's the notes for the introduction, here's the notes for chapter 2, and so on. These notes go in order of the text. Not in alphabetical order like a bibliography, but in order of how they occur in the text. So the first note is here, the second note here, third note like this. So as we read, for example, let's go to the text. Let's look. So chapter 6, and we'll look for the first note. Not here. Ah, yes, here at the bottom. See this tiny number 1? This is the first note in chapter 6. This tiny number 1. So if we want to know what the note says, we go to the notes section. Can be easier with an actual book. And go to chapter 6. Chapter 5. Chapter 6. And the first note here, and we can read what Conrad Hirschler wants us to know with that note. So he says here, on this style, see Rosenthal, 1968, pages 66-71, and Donner, 1998, pages 255 to 271. So these are two references that he used when he was writing the sentence where he made this note. Okay. Also, just to say, all of these notes here at the end of the book, we call these end notes because they come at the end of the book. Some authors put the notes on the exact page where the note comes in the chapter. At the very bottom of the page, we call those notes footnotes because they come at the bottom of the page, footnotes. So here, these are endnotes. Some authors will put the notes on the page where the note happens. That is a footnote. And if we go through, we should find here, yes, at the very end, we have the bibliography. This is, again, all of the sources that the author used to write the book. And these, in the bibliography, they are in alphabetical order. So starting with A, going to B, C, D, all the way until Z.